Anastasiya Khomutova is a sports science lecturer who looks at all different kinds of sport and has recently been working on different aspects to do with martial arts and gender and participation and inclusion, safety. So, good morning, Anastasia. How are you doing?
Morning. Very well. How are you?
I'm okay. Yeah, I'm okay. So you're at the University of Brighton and you've researched all different issues in sports. What brings you to
All of
martial
them.
arts?
Just to clarify, it's not the sports science lecture, it's the just lecture in sport. Nothing to do with sports science, to be honest.
Okay.
But my background is in sports psychology,
What's psychology?
so that's it. Yes, basically, I started back to my students' years. My research had nothing to do with martial arts. I've never done any martial arts myself. My research was mainly about cultural aspects of sports and how people from different cultural backgrounds communicate with each other in sport teams. So that was my thing to do.
Mm-hmm.
And then, two things really happened. First, I moved to Eastbourne, and I went to the workshop that a couple of colleagues were organizing here at the University of Brighton, Chris Matthews and Alex Channon. And they were talking about martial arts, and one of the presenters there was a local boxing coach from local boxing, Eastbourne Boxing Club. And he was just telling how they basically trying to create this very inclusive environment in the boxing club where people with different backgrounds, disabilities, abilities, LGBT community, anyone can be welcomed. And I thought, this is so refreshing. Finally, coaches actually talk about this, and I really, really liked it. And I just came to him after the presentation, and I said, well, my background is in psychology. Is there anything I can do for your club to help? And they got actually quite excited about it. So then I spent a few years at the club, voluntary, just helping them with some sort of mental preparation, group team cohesion for a competition. So that was kind of the first path. And the second one was a couple of years ago when I met people from International Judo Union. And they were quite interested why so many girls cannot maintain the participation in judo and they drop out. Okay. And we talked a lot about it, and they said, well, we do have a conference each year. If you would like to investigate this a little bit more, then you can present and tell us what can we do better. So that was the second path.
So you've done various work around boxing and some around. So you've done around a boxing gym, one specific gym, and then is it judo in general and a boxing gym in particular? Is that the kind of structure of it? Like, yeah.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. So I was just hanging in the boxing club for a couple of years, really. Okay. And that was just such a unique experience because I knew nothing about boxing except, I watched Rocky movies and I enjoyed them. and that was really it. And obviously, Vladimir and Vitaly Klitschko, every Ukrainian person knows them. So that was my kind of knowledge. And I just spent, I think that was about 3 times a week. I would just go there and just see if I can do something because the coaches were excited. But the boxers were not.
Okay.
Yeah, because there's a lot of stigma, I guess, around sports psychology and mental preparation in sport, and particularly for boxers. Many of them think, well, I don't really know. I don't really want to work with anyone because I'm not weak mentally. I'm all right. I don't need anything.
Okay. So with the boxing, you kind of got, from the sounds of it, your involvement expanded from making an inclusive boxing gym environment to working with competitive fighters around their mental and psychological preparation. Is that
I didn't have to do anything with the inclusivity, to be honest, because that was the coach's job, and Chris Matthews and Alex Channon did a couple of some things with that area, so that wasn't really me. I mainly talk to coaches about how they work, and mainly with the athletes as well, getting them ready for competitions.
So what are the headlines then? What did you walk into and see, and what kind of suggestions or contributions did you as a psychologist make?
Well, that was just very unique because the main thing was just to fit in, really, for the boxers to take me as one of, them. Because again, I've never done anything like this before. So I spent a couple of sessions just doing nothing, just being there, and that's what mainly consultants that they do. They just there to see maybe if anyone needs anything. But then I thought, if I'm there, I might as well train a little bit. So I started, very, very simple training. And I think that helped a lot because at least they saw that, well, she does something. And obviously I was doing it horribly. I am rubbish at it. But I was doing something. And then, they started making jokes about me, how bad I am. And I think that helped. And then I got injured and I was so proud of myself. Oh my God, my first injury. And that helped as well because they thought, well, we can actually talk to her. She's there and she's all right.
So the boundaries were kind of broken down because of your participation, and
I think so. Yeah. But then also there was the main person I worked with was the captain of the club.
Yeah.
And because he was very excited to work with me, he was a student, not mine, but he knew about sports psychology and what it can do, so he was very open-minded. And I think people saw him talking to me all the time, and they accepted that is okay.
Okay. So what did you manage to contribute to the preparation of competitive boxers?
Well, I hope so. Yeah, I did. I hope that was a useful contribution from my side. And yeah, we went to the national championships, and I think we reached the semi-finals, and that was great.
So were you recommending anything different to what they had already been doing, or what was the nature of your sort of suggestions, your advice and your input?
I wouldn't say that was radically different. The thing is that, yes, coaches very often do psychology work, and that's what they should be doing. But sometimes it's nice just to have a new person to kind of see it from a slightly different background.
Okay.
And just to give a slightly more maybe like a new type of advice. And I also saw that club captain, I saw him once a week outside the club in my office, just like a one-on-one session. And I think that helped as well, just to rationalize the feelings and just to talk through some things, to have clearer goals and understanding of what is going on.
Okay, so as an observer, then you can contribute with your kind of view of the situation. You can comment on what you think people's maybe psychological hurdles are, or their obstacles, or their strengths, maybe.
Yes, and actually being an observer who is not coming from this background, I think can be beneficial because I asked many silly questions.
Okay.
But I think for them to explain those questions and to explain the answers actually made them think, well, yeah, why is it like this? Why are we doing this like this?
Okay.
So I think that helps. Obviously, I think it's always hard to get into a sport that you've never done before. And people think, well, what does she know about it? Or, but it can be a benefit.
Okay. And so, I mean, switching to judo for a minute then,
Yeah.
I mean, how did you engage with the question of why large numbers of female judo practitioners didn't stick with the sport for long? Or is it beyond a certain age, or is it beyond a certain rank or age, or both? Well,
That was mainly focusing on teenage girls. And to be honest, there is so much research on this topic. So I was thinking, how can I find something new? Because again, so many people talked about it. It's not a secret why girls drop out from sport, especially when they are teenagers. And it's not only girls, boys drop out as well. So, during this teenage times, you go through changes in your mentality, in your body as well. And you have different priorities. So you choose life as
Yeah.
opposed to sport very often.
Yeah.
So that's not the secret. So I thought, what can I actually find out something new? And I thought I will look through it as relationship with coaches. Maybe
Okay.
there is something that coaches can do to make people stay. So I didn't focus on any particular age in my research. I interviewed as many people as I could.
Mm-hmm.
And then I thought, well, why only judo? I will try to interview as many people from other combat sports as possible, because there's got to be some sort of connection there.
Okay.
So I interviewed people from BJJ and boxing, karate, so on.
Mm-hmm. So you were looking for issues in the coach competitor relationship that could maybe foster continuation at a time when we want to choose life rather than discipline. And what continuities did you find across the people who maybe dropped out or didn't drop out? I guess it's hard to interview people who dropped out because they're not at the club anymore, are they? They're not.
Yes, and I did ask a few people, if there is anyone who dropped out already, just give me their numbers. That didn't work very well, so I still appeal to people. If you know somebody who dropped out, just let me know. I will interview them. Yes, but many people who I interviewed, they were thinking they thought about dropout before. So they could reflect on it, or they could reflect on people that they know, they trained with, and they don't anymore.
Mm-hmm. So what kind of, are there differences between a judo, the reasons why a judo player might quit, or a karateka, or a jiu-jitsu person, or I guess any other teenage sports competitor? Are there unique differences, and are there continuities?
I don't think there are any difference, to be honest, and it's probably applicable to the sports outside combat sports as well. But I think that there is a unique relationship between coaches and athletes in combat sports because of the proximity, how close people are physically and mentally, and also how much trust you in kind of put into your coach, because that will hurt a lot. If you don't trust your coach or something goes wrong, you really need to trust. So I guess your question is about why people quit.
Well, is it? I guess I could rephrase the question and ask a more precise one. So, I've done stuff from going to the gym to lift weights to I've trained competitive martial arts styles. I never really competed. I mean, I've done some competitions, but I would just go as something to do. It's what I did. It's like I did taekwondo, not as a competitor, but just everyone else was competing, but I couldn't be bothered to have that level of commitment. And I'm wondering, is there a type of, there's that type of quitting, which is you accidentally quit, where you kind of go, I can't, I'm a bit achy, I'll go next time. And then next time comes, you go, oh, well, I'm a bit busy, I'll go next time. And then all of a sudden you find that you haven't done the thing that you still think you are doing. You haven't done it for 3 months. You're like, shit, I don't know if I could do this. Because that happens with me regularly with things. When I was younger, now I realize life is short. Or do people to go, just, no, I'm done, I can't. What did you find most common? Was it a kind of gradual rusting and kind of oh, next time, I'm a bit tired today, or did people go, I can't deal with this, I'm out?
Well, I think the answer is kind of in between. This project actually then turned out to be something completely different, not something that I anticipated at the beginning, but I guess I'll get back to it later. And basically, yes, the reason I find out why girls quit is very often that relationship changes, the dynamic changes between them and their coaches, and them and the males that they train with. And suddenly there is, all of those body changes going on with girls. And coaches, some of the coaches that don't really know how to deal with that. For example, they don't even provide sometimes changing facilities for females.
Okay.
Or there are no kind of understanding of the physiology of females and when they have periods and how they might suffer mentally or physically. And coaches think that, well, when a girl has her periods, she's faking that she's not feeling well.
Okay.
And girls can't really train properly and they don't feel well. And then, yeah, reasons like this. And then there is, at some point, the trust is lost between the coaches and athletes. Some girls were telling me that coaches would just take their phones to check like who texts them and read them out loud, you know, the text from the boyfriends, and make fun of them.
Okay.
And then you think like, well, I don't really, you know, want to do that. Yeah.
So would that imply that either a female coach or a sensitive and educated male coach, that they're going to have a better retention rate of their students?
Well, as you know, in the research, we can't really, especially in qualitative, we can't really generalize that. And I cannot say, yeah, definitely just female coaches, that's the way to go. No, you just, you know, I think important thing is, yeah, just be educated. But also for girls to, you know, explain how they feel, and maybe not even being afraid to say, because there is so much stigma about, you know, our bodies and what's wrong or what's not wrong. But that's why I looked at this problem through the coach's kind of perspective, because I wanted them to tell me, you know, if they know about those things, and very often they do. But we just, I think very often just don't know how to talk about things like that.
Yeah, I guess I wonder if, I mean, if culturally that we are much more direct and explicit about what we're feeling, what is happening to us in our body, but there's so much kind of euphemism that maybe if you don't know, you never know. Like, you know, a man might never know what the euphemisms mean, even still today. So, but I mean, that how do you change that? I mean, that could be, I'm just trying to imagine how you could possibly.
Yeah, no, this is a very good point, because I interviewed one of the female coaches, and she was afraid to say out loud the word period. She would just whisper it to me. And that's woman to woman, you know. So, And the thing is that my research, it started in the UK, but then I had an access for some international athletes, and I interviewed a couple in a few athletes and coaches from more Eastern Europe.
Yeah.
And this is when the problem starts, because at least in the UK, yes, you know, it is hard to talk about some stuff, but people still a little bit more open in the communication. Whilst, you know, if you go more to the East, it's a little bit like, you know, don't even say it out loud.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, it's a funny thing, because surely you could. Yeah, I mean, I can't solve this problem. It's the first time I've never, but like it's the first time I've thought about that. Like, wow, yeah, I mean, there are such profound biological differences, and I guess that's all massively compounded at puberty and going through puberty and all of those teenage years.
Especially if you think about the color of your gear. Many girls told me that when they are on periods and they need to go and train and the gear is white, all they could think about is whether they leaked or not.
Yeah.
And it's so embarrassing if they do.
I mean, it's odd that you couldn't just say, well, I'm not training this week. This is my week off.
Well, I guess you can, but you still want to train sometimes. You still want to be there, and for those especially professional athletes, this is all they do. So they, Did you look at any? I mean, did you bump into any issues around, like, you know, teenage boys and their participation in sport? Because I mean, obviously the girls have more obviously physical and biological reasons that might put huge amounts of pressure on their continuing participation in sports, especially in an unsympathetic environment. Boys have physiological changes too, and they also have psychological changes right around in their teenage years. I mean, did you look at any of those issues? Or no, I because I didn't really want to go too broad. Maybe that's something for the future, definitely, because there is not much research in coach-athlete relationship with combat sports. So I'm trying to get there a little bit more. But I started looking into a different area of safeguarding, actually.
Yeah.
And that's what my research turned out to be. So it started with this girls' retention in judo, and then it turned out to be a safeguarding research, because I find out so many cases of maltreatment.
Yeah.
And I thought, Jesus, you know, you kind of, I think I probably lived in this bubble that, you know, yeah, something can happen, but it's not as common, and we're doing great. No, we're not. Plenty of things are going on. And again,
what are the most common kind of safeguarding issues that you encounter? So is this across several types of sport? Was it combat sport? Was it judo?
Just combat sports.
So across combat sports, you've interviewed people. You interviewed teenagers, and you coaches and competitors, and what are the most regular, recurring kinds of like things that you would say that's an issue, that's a problem?
Well, it's about crossing the boundaries, like those, you know, taking somebody's phone and reading, you know, the text, or the more to the east of Europe, it was more about the some sort of physical punishment.
Okay.
Lots of beating children, lots of you have to break them mentally,
Right.
otherwise they won't make it.
Okay.
And the cases of, you know, kind of humiliation, like if you're a girl, that means nothing. If you win championships, well, you know, you're a woman, so it counts for nothing. Or some sort of inappropriate relationships, as of, you know, asking them inappropriate questions or wanting to have some sort of relationship. That was not with not necessarily with teenagers.
That could be.
That's illegal, obviously. Yeah.
And I mean, there's lots that I could ask about that. I mean, what kind of, in terms of different combat sports, what kind of regulation and what kind of safeguarding do we find? Are certain things mandatory? Are certain things explicitly forbidden by certain bodies? Or, I mean,
that's the problem. There are so many bodies and organizations, and obviously you have, if you're an Olympic sport, you have to fulfill some sort of safeguarding criteria. But if you're just a club, it's quite tough to, you know, to maintain this safeguarding and to know what is, I mean, for athletes to know what is wrong, what is right. And again, in the UK, yes, at least there are some safeguarding committees, and actually based on the results of this research, I joined safeguarding for England boxing, because I thought, you know, I have to do something to help. But again, so many organizations and federations, and I didn't do much investigation, particularly what safeguarding are there. But I clicked through some of the websites, and usually when you have, you don't really have any information about safeguarding there. You have information about ethics sometimes, and if you do, it's all connected to doping. Okay.
So I'm just thinking I was thinking about everyday sexism as well, you know, so because I'm thinking two things. So I'm thinking back to the first thing that you said about your kind of way into the boxing community involved jokes and a little bit of like ridicule and a little bit of banter, right? We use that word. What did Donald Trump call his locker room banter? Or so you call, you know.
Yeah.
So we, on the one hand, we've got that, which is awful in the extreme. But at the same time as that, I remember reading by the Slovenian psychoanalytic theory Slavoj Žižek, and he said that being able to share really offensive jokes is one of the kind of markers of inclusion, or the constitution of a group, a shared thing. So like you're saying, so you're in a boxing gym, and I'm guessing that some of the initial comments about your abilities and about who you were probably very sexist, but they were also relationship forming, because if you decide to laugh, or if you laugh spontaneously because it's so preposterous, then all of a sudden that sexist joke, it's not it's not a terrible thing. It's
Well,
like
to be
not
honest,
not inherently, but yes, inherently, it's a transgression. But it's also like a can we be friends sort of a. I mean,
I
I'm on
totally,
dodgy ground here, but
no,
what
no,
do
no,
you make of it?
I totally understand it, and I reflected about it myself, and I never experienced any sexist jokes myself, so I
Okay.
would really, want to clarify that, because the club was very inclusive for
Okay.
females and plenty of female athletes there. So it's, all that banter was never related to gender, but yeah, to the abilities. Um, and I liked it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, exactly as you say. The minute I received, a joke like this, a comment on my abilities, I thought, sounds like I am getting in. That's great news.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's fun. I know it can be quite difficult. There's a little bit of cognitive dissonance in here going on, isn't it? When I talked about this experience at one of the conferences, and I told how that they made jokes and things like that, and I saw some people in the audience were like, "Oh, they don't say that." And
People making jokes about your abilities.
yeah, and I thought, well, I actually quite liked it. I thought, well, first of all, they were absolutely correct. And
Yeah.
secondly, yeah, it made me feel like they accepted me. So
Yeah.
it is a tough one. Yeah, there is a difference between a joke like this and then when they actually say to a boy, they say, well, if you train very badly again, you're going to be training with girls.
Mm.
Or that, go and do some push-ups, some women push-ups, like Aiden. Things
Yeah.
like that.
It's yeah.
Blurred lines. I know it's quite tough.
I mean, you need to do quite a complex reflection on the situation, on the power dynamics, on if someone's being victimized, or if it is a sort of socially bonding thing. Most jokes have some nastiness in them. That's where the humor is. But yeah, I mean, this is the classic arguments against political correctness, isn't it? It's like killjoy. Was it feminist killjoy kind of idea?
Yeah.
But because it's more complicated than that.
Yeah, I guess maybe the difference is when if you don't like the joke and you say don't say it again, and they keep doing that, that's the problem. And if they don't,
yeah. So what are your current projects? I mean, where are you in your research and publishing, and
where am I in my publishing? Thank you for reminding me how much behind I am in my publishing. Yeah, well, I'm trying to find some time to actually publish this study. Yeah, because it's been some time since I collected the data, but in academia there is no time. So hopefully I will publish that soon, and the plan is to collect substantially more data from other countries, especially, well, interestingly, actually, when I was interviewing people, there were a couple of people from Russia, from Caucasus region, like Dagestan, Chechnya, these kind of countries, and it's very patriarchal region, very much. But now there is, at the next Olympics, well, next year, there will be for the first time mixed judo event, right? And those countries who are usually very, very good in judo, they're very male dominant. Now they have suddenly realized, well, there is another medal opportunity here. We need to actually get girls.
Okay.
So that will be interesting to find out, how that changed the perception and
is your data gathering normally interviews that you record and analyze, or is that?
Either that or focus groups. Yeah.
Okay. And what about do you do kind of ethnographic hanging out in clubs and that kind of hanging around that an ethnographer?
Not anymore, to be honest, because it's so time consuming. And there is, with other commitments and jobs, I don't really have time unless I get maybe a good grant and buy myself out of teaching or get a PhD student.
Okay. And do you still visit the same boxing club, or was that just a short
Oh,
thing?
I am in touch. I am in touch, but I just can't really afford to just get there and spend time because of other commitments. I'm trying to let them know that if they need something, I can definitely see people individually. It's not a problem, but I just can't really go regularly and just be there.
I guess none of us can at the moment. So, I mean, have you encountered any, as a psychologist and as someone who's researching these clubs and these communities and these individuals, what have you encountered that might have changed since lockdown, since the pandemic really took a hold? Have you had any dealings with people with different ways of trying to cope, different ways of trying to continue, or not?
Not really, no, because I'm just I guess everyone is trying to focus as much as they can on what they do, and that's it. I think, well, actually the coaches in the club, they do Zoom sessions, so that's very good. I think many people do Zoom training at the moment, so
yeah. Some things are more amenable to that than others, I guess. Things like boxing and stuff is easier than Brazilian jiu-jitsu, isn't it?
Oh yes, at least you can do shadow boxing as opposed to
it's harder to
trying
shadow
to
wrestling.
choke your invisible partner.
Just hold your arms, you're not really doing anything.
Yeah, you can win all the time.
Okay, Anastasia, thank you so much for taking the time to talk.
Really enjoyed that. It's so nice to talk about your research. It's just
great.
finally somebody listens.
Thank you very much.
Thanks.